I'm here with Jonathan Blevins, known as Bearded Blevins. Let's talk about that work. What is Bearded Blevins on Twitch? What do you do there?
Yeah, so 5 years ago, I started streaming part-time on a website called Twitch, kind of like YouTube, Facebook, if you will, live streaming. And I would play video games, and you could see my face while I was playing and watch what I was doing, and then talk to the people watching, answer questions. I used it at the time as a very practical way of answering questions about the faith. And then that went really popular really fast, and then it kind of died out because people got their answers and went elsewhere. And then I realized that people liked watching me for other reasons, and I could be entertaining and just be myself and authentically answer the questions instead of doing a Q&A type thing. So it's evolved into this full-time thing I do now, but it started out
40 hours a week.
Yeah, 40 hours a week, and we turned it into a business, and there's lots of other projects we're doing.
So you would do it mostly at night then, or how does that work?
Yeah, when I was part-time, I'm married with 3 kids. At the time, I think my middle child was just born, maybe 6 months old, and my oldest was 16 months. And I would just do it 12 hours a week at night while they were sleeping. With a bad setup, a bad webcam. I mean, just didn't have the stuff to do it, but it went well. We were building community, and I was seeing God kind of work in cool ways. And it made a little bit extra cash on the side, so my wife allowed me to continue it.
Do you have like a co-host with it, or?
No, I just by myself. Sometimes you can play games with other people, and whatever I'm hearing, the whole chat can hear, the community can hear. But no, just kind of by myself.
And so they bring up questions about the faith, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it just in general, imagine watching like a Netflix show, but you can talk to the actors and the actresses at the same time. That's kind of how it is. So with live streaming. So people see and they start asking you different questions. And because I'm Catholic and have been Catholic my whole life, it just would come up that I would share with them like, hey, actually, the reason I'm not cursing every other second during this live stream like a lot of other people are is because I'm Catholic. And then you say that you're on the internet and you're just opening Pandora's box. What does that mean? What does Catholic mean?
And what keeps them from cursing over you or something?
Yeah, so they can type into a chat, and anyone watching can read what they're typing, and then on my end, we can moderate what everyone is saying. So I've typed in every single word you can think of that is a horrific word.
Okay.
I've had to type it in so that when someone else types it in, it won't allow it. And if there's, of course, always ways around that. And so you have what's called moderators. People who just volunteer their time. They like what you're building. They like the live streamer, and they're there anyway watching, and they say, I can be a moderator for you. You can't always see what's happening in the chat at every moment, especially if there's a lot of people in there. It goes by pretty quickly.
And you're playing a game.
And you're playing a game. Now, I'm very good at reading chat while playing. Like the whole point of me playing is to be with the community. So very rarely do I miss a chat.
So you're not talking to them. I mean, you're not listening to them talk to you.
Yeah, I'm reading it.
Okay.
I'm reading it. Okay. And so my moderators will ban people, time people out, like warn people, hey, don't say don't use that language kind of here.
Okay. And then to be able to monetize it, how does that work?
Yeah, so it works in a couple ways. On Twitch, you have what's called, people can subscribe to you. On YouTube, that's free. You hit subscribe, it's like following someone on Facebook. On Twitch, a subscription is, you pay for it. So if you pay for a subscription to a streamer, you don't get any ads on their channel. You also get access to emojis or emotes that the streamer designs or that they have a content creator, designer design. And you can use those as part of the community. And it sounds weird explaining it, but if I go live right now, you'll see hundreds of people that come in that are using my emojis that you have to be subscribed to use. A subscription costs between $5 and $25 a month. You can choose, and then the streamer gets half of that. Right, so I'm averaging right now about 1,500 to 2,000 subscribers a month. Twitch takes 50%, which I think is too much, but that's a whole other conversation. I get 50. People watching can donate, and they're incentivized to do so. If you donate money, alerts pop up on the channel. It's like, oh, this person donated, and you get to type a special message. And then really it's then advertising deals with companies in specific, and then just regular ads that show up on the channel. You get a little revenue share of that. Okay. So those are the 3 biggest ways that you can monetize live streaming.
And so what kind of topics of the faith would come up, or do they have a question they'll ask, or what were typical?
I think the most typical. So I would say it's interesting. Catholics are still the most popular group, I think, in America. But the people on Twitch, majority of them are not Catholic. At least the ones that I'm talking to. But a lot of Christians, or even former Christians. And so the biggest questions I get are, what's the difference between Catholicism and Christianity? Mm. What's the deal with the Pope? Mm-hmm. Why do you worship Mary? Mm-hmm. Those are the three ones that come up more than any other question. Uh-huh. Maybe why do you pray to saints? Which I think I have a really good answer I've never heard anyone give before. Which is like, if you're a Protestant and someone says, my mom is dying, will you please pray for her? Right. And someone says, no one's going to say no. Just pray for her yourself. God can hear you. Yeah, right. Like, who said that? I've never heard any non-denominational or any evangelical say that before. They say, of course I'll pray for your mom. Yeah. Well, what's the point? Why would you do that if you can just pray for yourself? And if we all as Christians believe that a saint is in heaven, we might disagree on who's in heaven, but a saint is anyone who's in heaven. Yeah. Why not ask someone who's alive in heaven to pray for us the same way you'd ask a friend? And every time I've said that online, everyone's like, interesting. Yeah. It's like, seems like a no-brainer. Yeah. And like the people that are interacting with you, do you have any idea about, are they men, women, what age group, or? So it's at best a guess, because Twitch doesn't give you those analytics anymore like they used to. But I think I can get it pretty close. I think 70% men, 30% women. And I think the average age is probably between the age of 24 and 36. Really? Yeah. So a little older than you might think, and more women than you might think. You said it was what percentage women? 70% men, 30% women. Oh, okay. And so would it be at night that you would do this? No, so now that I'm full-time, about a year and a half ago, we went full-time. Yeah. And I actually started streaming at 6 o'clock in the morning until about 2 p.m. or 6 a.m. to noon. And so that actually has probably made my age demographic go up a little. A majority of people watching me are watching while they're at work. Oh. So you're crippling the economy. I am, Father. I don't know what to tell you. This week I'm traveling. I'm here with EWTN, and normally I'm live in the morning. I haven't been. And the amount of tweets I've gotten from people that said, this is my most productive week of the year. It's pretty funny. And then too, you mentioned, I think, about having just kind of normal conversation or even some entertainment there in terms of how do you approach that? Like, because I think that is such a, I think it was Sherry Waddell was talking about, we're kind of mostly doing work of pre-evangelization right now. It's like, becoming friends with, people, relating to them, knowing their stories, and do you find yourself doing a lot of that? Yeah, I would say that now, like as I mentioned a little earlier, when I started, I was just like, I'm Catholic, hear me roar, ask me questions. And that was fun. And I think that God used that. But now it's definitely, I'm way more intentional about being pre-evangelization and forming a community. Yeah. So when I go live, we're talking about food often, which is scary how much we talk about just food. What do we like? What do we not like? What are hot takes? What's your favorite fast food place? Your least favorite? Are boneless wings just chicken nuggets? I mean, you wouldn't believe the amount of opinions people have when you ask those questions. And then sports. I'm a huge sports guy. So football, basketball, really all sports. And so we talk a lot about that, and we'll talk a lot about current events. One of the things I pride myself on in the channel is creating a discourse between people that disagree. So we'll talk about politics and things that are coming up, and we'll do so in a way that is loving and respectful. And so it doesn't cause this massive chaos. I'm not getting canceled every other day online. And then again, because I'm Catholic in the way I hold myself, that still comes up. People will ask questions eventually about that. Mm-hmm. But really, we'll talk about anything and everything. And again, they're typing in their contribution. And the more you type, the more I know you. I mean, I've met some of my closest friends right now. I met through doing this 5 years ago. Oh, wow. Which sounds crazy, but it's been great. I guess we should say too, your background, you were like a youth minister. Yep, I did 15 years of parish ministry, 10 years in youth ministry, and then 5 years of adult evangelization, supervising an entire team of people that would also do evangelization for the whole parish. Oh, really? So like within the parish evangelizing? Yeah. Oh, wow.
Did you go to Steubenville or something? Or?
I did. I didn't go to the school. I went to Steubenville conferences. I went to
Yeah.
Silver Lake College of the Holy Family
Uh-huh.
in Manitowoc, Wisconsin.
Oh.
Are you familiar?
No, I haven't. I'm trying to think where Manitowoc is.
It's like 45 minutes north of Milwaukee and like
Okay.
40 minutes south of Green Bay, right in the middle
Oh,
on Lake Michigan. So I went there, and then I went to Fordham for graduate school.
Okay. Oh, you did.
And
What
I
did you
learned.
study?
I studied. I got my master's in religious education with
Uh-huh.
an emphasis in youth and young adult ministry.
Oh.
And I learned more from arguing with my professors and my classmates than I did from any of the reading. But I'm thankful for the degree.
Yeah, so I think like teaching youth and answering questions of adults and that experience there too. So you have you've polished the answers, right? Researched and have answers.
Yeah, I would not be able to have done what I'm doing now 15 years ago. I had to be ready in order to do it. And even just like travel, like being able to speak. I do a lot of speaking around the country, and I've been flown around the world to speak. That as well has helped me to be able to live stream.
Okay.
I would not have been able to be good at it if I didn't do that first.
And your speaking topics, what would you give talks?
I always try to pray with the people who want to hire me about what it is that their community needs to hear. In general, I love to just repitching the charisma and just and trying to inspire people, whatever state of life they're in, to pursue holiness. But lately, I've really enjoyed talking about how do we, as Catholics, live in this world in front of screens and technology. How do we navigate that and on our way to heaven has been a fun one for me lately.
What are some of the rules there, or principles that help keep us out of trouble or too much, or how does that work?
I kind of hate the way that the word addiction has been thrown around lately.
Because you don't have a problem.
No, exactly, Father. No, it's funny because like a lot of my friends will ask me. I'm here. I'm in Birmingham today. I'm not playing Fortnite. Normally, I would be playing Fortnite today. Do you miss it? No, I don't want to play anymore. If I could never play another game in my life, I'd be fine.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not about that. It's playing Fortnite when I'm streaming is really about. It's like going to a bar with friends. It's not about going to the bar. It's about the conversation you have with the people that you're there with.
Yeah.
But the bar helps the conversation.
Right,
it gives us something to do in the awkward moments in between. That's how I view gaming for me personally. That's not how a lot of people view it. But I do, so as much as I don't like the word addiction thrown around too loosely, I do think that there's a lot of addiction in this world. And I think that a lot of us are addicted to technology, to our phones, to social media, to video gaming. Yeah. And that needs to not be a thing. Yeah. That's where I'd start first and foremost, is not to make people feel shame for it at all, but to just do a self-reflection of, am I in front of a screen too often? And for me, it's funny, when I went full-time, I'm on my screen almost more, but I don't like it anymore. Does that make sense? Right. Like I used to love it. I used to scroll because I liked to scroll. Right. And now I'm on there because I have to respond to this person. I have to, and then when I put it down, it's like, oh, thank God I don't have to look at it again until tomorrow. Right.
And just off the top of my head too, it's like I know it can be compelling. I remember one time I think I did get like a Tetris on my phone, and it was, I was playing it like sometimes before I go to bed, but then it like kind of wire you up, but there's something like this. I guess it's like a dopamine hit that all right, the blocks are closing in on you. You're trying to beat that. Yeah. So I guess it's that intensity, that dopamine hit that can be quote unquote addictive, right? And that's what you got to be careful of. And maybe too, like how it distorts, because the church warns about this for religious and I think particularly like contemplative nuns, to be very careful about media. Like it can be so stimulating, it's not conducive to prayer. If I got to be stimulated to hold my attention, how am I going to pray and meditate on scripture or just sit there in silence, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And we need, and it's funny you say that we need silence, and I talk about silence a lot. And I think it's fun, like the younger generation now hears silence and they're like, oh, I'm quiet all the time. I'm quietly scrolling through Instagram and Twitter. It's like, that's not silence. Doesn't count. You have to put it away.
Yeah.
And that's, so for me, like daily mass and trying to pray as often as I can in front of the Blessed Sacrament is a must.
Yeah.
Or I find myself absolutely, you're just not able to focus on prayer at all.
Yeah, it's almost like our diet. We had a gentleman from France who used to work at the network, and so he comes out of this French culture, and they're known like for having their long meals. So you go out, maybe just go eat out with friends. For Americans, it's like dinner, movie, and whatever. But I remember he would talk about like the fast food thing, a lot of salt, a lot of sugar. So you get like this big stimulation to your taste buds, right? You get acclimated to that. And then, so even like our news, right? The headline's flashy, it gets our attention. I don't worry about that. Or, it's something that's really, I guess it's always been that way. If it bleeds, it leads. You think about the old newspaper guy saying that. But I guess it's so prevalent today that, right, news used to be just a half hour in the evening, plus local news. But now you can go sit down at your computer and just read news anytime, and it can be really super stimulating and a lot of conflict and all that stuff. So that almost distorts us, doesn't it, to some degree?
It does. Now, I think what you just did, Father, is you just presented the problem, which you're right. Everything you just said is true. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all those things, they keep us online by making us mad. That's their whole idea, is to make us angry, shocked. How do we keep scrolling? What I'm trying to do is the opposite. We're trying to have a good place to go online.
Right.
I would not argue with any holy person who said, isn't it just better to not be on at all?
Yeah.
I'd say sure. I'm serious. Sure.
Right,
you're not going to get an argument from me. But how are we going to reach those people who are spending every hour online, which is a lot of people?
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and that is, the gospel's got to be, and I'm sure there's all kinds of historical times where there was something that the gospel eventually got into to baptize it, or just to be a presence there, right? So we have to use, even here, like I remember when the internet was first coming out, and Mother Angelica wanting to be there. Now she would warn about the internet. I think she was prophetic. She could see problems with it and stuff. But at the same time, EWTN had this library they put online of documents and everything. The gospel's got to be there. And on the show, you point out something I'd never thought of, but just the educational value of games. Because like you said on the show, that more people are watching or playing video games than watching television. And that just staggers me. I can't even imagine that. I'm just old, right? I'm out of touch here. But maybe talk about that way that a game could teach the faith.
Sure. So if I don't have the numbers in front of me of how much time the average person spends in front of a game. In front of a screen, it's staggering. Between the ages of like 10 and 30, even probably higher, you're looking at 6 to 10 hours a day in front of a screen. That's when you're awake, essentially. Right. And that's on my worst days, on my travel days, it's like, okay, I'm at the airport, I'm on my phone while I eat, while I have my coffee, while I'm on the plane. And so you understand for sure, there's a lot of people on screens. There's a lot of, and then you think of all those people who are on screens playing a game. And most of the time, it's just mind-numbing stuff, just fun things that they find interesting. Right. But if you can find a way to make what someone's doing on their screen time and allow it to help them learn something, why not? Right. There's this World War II game, and I'm forgetting the name of it, that I played a couple of years ago. I learned more about World War II than I learned in any history class I'd ever had. Right. It was amazing. Right. And because I was interested in the game, and then because of that, I was paying attention to what they were teaching. Right. In the history of it. And the same way I think can be true with the Bible and with the Catholic faith. And not that it would be the only way anyone learns, but that it absolutely can be a primary way that someone learns the faith. I don't like the idea of virtual reality, that we can put on a something soon in the next 20 years that most households will probably have, where we can be anywhere at any time. Mm-hmm. But it's coming. And so if that's coming, why wouldn't we go to the Vatican instead of to a strip club? Mm-hmm. Let's go to the Vatican and learn and like see history, and let's look at these old Roman churches and Let's go to Jerusalem. And so I think that it absolutely belongs there. And when you can, I think of this game, the Acutis game, the idea that we're going to be able to go through the lives of different saints and to think about how many thousands of saints there are out there and the stories that they have are better than any TV show out there, some of these saint stories.
Right.
I love the idea that we're going to be able to play a game and then learn about those saint stories and have those come to life.
And do you have like an idea of like what would that look like the game part of it? What would that look like?
Yeah, so for the Acutis game, I know that they're still working out the kinks and all that stuff, but one of the things is you're Carlo Acutis, Blessed Carlo Acutis. One of the things that happens is you're traveling through to Nazi Germany, and you go through there and you go to Poland and you're looking for St. John Paul II before he becomes a priest. And maybe you're going to have a pivotal conversation with him that inspires him to say yes to the priesthood.
Right.
And then eventually, as we know, St. John Paul II defeats communism and becomes a saint.
Yeah.
And the whole time you're this teenage kid, right, who was alive in the last 50 years, who's got Nike, he's buried in his Nikes, and you're learning about St. John Paul II. You're learning about St. Therese of Lisieux, and you're participating in their life in some way, completing challenges. And then actually one of the cool things about the game is you're earning tokens in the game that you can actually use in real life as currency. So you're earning a token. Let's say that you want to contribute to building wells in Africa. Maybe you can use that token that you're gaining by helping this saint and learning about the saint to actually help the real world at the same time online. I think it's just, it sounds so cool.
Well, you just made me think of, I was in Poland last October or something, and went to Victory Square where John Paul went, his first visit as Pope, and he gave this powerful homily there, calling down the Holy Spirit. I mean, I guess the game, you could have like real footage of that, or even the game part, maybe you could look at people in the crowd next to you, or maybe ask them why they're here. They'd be an electrician that's doing this, or you could have like different experiences from people you encounter in the crowd.
Yeah.
And that would and even that would be powerful. I mean, just to hear, hopefully you could get like some true stories in there, or meet Father Jerzy Papalusko or something, And but I think it fires the imagination. Like you could really see the square. Okay, this is what it looked like. We went there when I was in Poland. It was like, today they got this cross and this plaque, commemorating it, and just. It just makes it so much more cemented in your mind if you can see the visual, and have some interaction with it.
Yeah.
Because I was just reading that online. It's like to really remember things well, if you can interlock it with other knowledge, things you know about, and maybe you know about like what Victory Square looks like. This is what John Paul II said. This is, that it just helps cement it better in your mind.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think I know one of the characters is St. Maximilian Kolbe. And imagine like you're in that prison and you're looking around, you're talking to the different people that are there, and it becomes real. When I was a kid, the hardest thing for me, and I'm just one person, this is very anecdotal, but I had a hard time caring about history, and in both regular history and church history, because I just wasn't interested. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why it mattered to me. I lived in Illinois. I'd never been to Europe. Why am I learning about this stuff? But when I went to visit, and I was driving around Germany, and I went to Ireland, and I went to Rome, I'm asking my wife the whole time, I'm like, Google this. Why did this happen? Where are we? What happened while we were here in World War II and World War I? I was just fascinated by it because it was real.
Right.
And I know video gaming isn't real, but with this virtual reality stuff, it's going to be, like you're saying, kind of real. Yeah. And it hopefully will inspire the younger generation to start caring about some of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, I guess like I'll come back to Poland for a second because, I read, Witness to Hope and other, like the sequels and stuff to that book. And so I'm having to imagine a lot of this stuff. And then I go and see Warsaw, and I was expecting a lot more kind of remnant from communism, Soviet style buildings and everything. And there was certainly that, but also you saw the beautiful architecture, the history. You see the cathedral that was bombed out. They actually had fighting in the cathedral and everything. And it's like, And then Maxine Colby. I mean, we went to Nipikolonov, and to see like the original chapel, how simple it was, and yet to hear about they had a runway, they have a daily paper, they had this fire department to serve the larger city and stuff, and it's like, I don't know, there's something so powerful about seeing the real thing.
Yep.
That it gives a much greater, I think, understanding and interest in it. But let's also talk about a new podcast you have. Is this for kids? And so you're not naive, man. You're in the heart of this culture war, and you've got 3 kids.
Yep.
And you want to curate what they see, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about your new podcast.
Yeah, so the idea of the podcast, Is This for Kids, is that there are, it is my full-time job to be understanding what is happening on social media within the culture, and then to be part of that culture and hopefully try to change the culture. That's I'm on every social media platform, putting content out there, living in that space. I'm not just, there's a difference, I think, between putting content in a space and living in the space. And I think in order to really truly evangelize, we have to know the space. Mm-hmm. Right? Anybody can record a video and just put it on YouTube. But if you're not familiar with how YouTube works, your YouTube channel is never going to grow. You have to, play the game, kind of, so to speak. And even though it's my full-time job, I still don't know how to best parent my kids through it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I don't, then how can a parent who isn't a part of that space all the time know? And so I really kind of, in this moment of prayer, felt like I have to help parents as much as I can to navigate this digital world and best allow their kids the best chance to succeed and still be healthy, happy, holy, joyful. And then the idea was like not just for parents who know they want that. Yeah. I think every parent deep down wants their kid to be happy, healthy, holy, even if they're not Christian. So let's cast the net out to everybody and just use our hopefully good personalities, myself and my co-host, to get people interested in what we're saying, and then review movies, music, video games and TV shows, both old and new, and say like, hey, this is what you should and should not, maybe let your kids watch. Not so black and white. I don't want to say there was going to be shows where we're saying don't let your kids watch this, but to also just say, hey, this is what it is. It's up to you, the parent, to determine, but at least know that this show has this in it, that this movie has this in it. That for a video game example, Call of Duty is one of the most famous video games in the world right now. You can turn off the gore, you can turn off the language, and you can actually stop your kid. You can have a setting where your kid's not playing with online strangers. All of a sudden, this mature video game maybe becomes a teen video game. Right? But there's these 10-year-olds playing this game that's just horrible, and their parents don't know. Right. So that's kind of the idea and the origin of the podcast.
And there's some weird fascination. I know, especially like young boys, my perspective growing up, it's like you're fascinated with Dracula, Frankenstein, the werewolf, and blood and all this kind of stuff. So there's something about how it just kind of immediately kind of titillates us, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be careful of that. When you were talking on the show, being interviewed by Brother John, it struck me that if you could somehow tap into all the other parents out there who maybe have watched, like maybe you wouldn't have to, you can't watch everything, but like they could be a resource to tell you, hey, we think there's a problem here or there and there, and you kind of pool all the efforts, You have so many eyes out there that it seems like that could be a great network to do.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
They can go to BeardedBlevins.com and they could find any of my contact on there, and I'm happy to hear anything from anybody.
Yeah.
I love that idea.
And I wonder too, it seemed like it'd be hard to navigate like the subtlety. And I guess that's what you're saying, like just to point out this might be a problem for your kids, right? If there's some subtle reference to something or some bad view of the world, bad worldview or something. Because I was just recently reading someone that writes about kind of the culture wars, and she was talking about how it's just so prevalent. Like the elites of our society are pushing this agenda, and they are getting the youth, right? In children's movies or Disney or whatever. It's like it's so prevalent, and So you're not daunted by that, going into that to try to.
No, because I think that most people, I feel like the media is portraying two sides very polarized against one another, right? And you either fit into one of the two.
Yeah.
And I think most people are kind of in the middle,
right?
And I think and so any way that you can share the faith with truth and love, I feel like way more people are going to be open to it than the media makes us think.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I heard Jon Stewart say this. I never really watched his show or anything, but he said he thought there's much more agreement than what's presented.
I think so.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
You see a lot of the stuff, like right now, I think the biggest way that's showing right now in the culture is with schools. What should schools be allowed to teach and not teach?
Yeah.
I think a majority of Americans are just like, keep most things out. Like, let us talk to our kids about important things.
Right.
And I think most people are just kind of like, yeah. And the people who are like, no, the schools should teach everything, or everyone kind of looks at them like, that's why. It seems the media would have you believe it's a majority, but I don't think it is.
Right. I know. So I went to a class reunion one time. It might have been my 20th or something, but I remember one of the teachers was there, and we figured out like he was in his 30s when he was teaching us. And I remember thinking, like, this guy, we just had a lot of respect for him and whatever he said. But you think about it, like a lot of 30-year-olds teaching our kids, right? It's like you might be a parent older than that. It's like you just can't turn that all over to the school system. Yeah. It's like crazy,
100%.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I think that's much needed. So hopefully that'll get a lot of traction. And that's going to cover everything, right? It's movies, books, even.
Yeah, maybe some books. I can't. I know that it's easier for me to watch a show than read a book, but for sure. But really, the video games, movies, music, and TV shows are like the four biggest.
Yeah. And something I wanted to ask you about too is you have a famous brother. His gaming personality name is Ninja, right? And how does that work? Like in terms of monetizing that or his popularity, explain that mechanism to us?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier with the whole like Twitch, how you make money there, that it's kind of the same except at a bigger scale, because he really kind of put Twitch on the map. When he blew up, most people didn't know what Twitch was, and he ended up, it was a combination of really hard work. He was a live streamer for 8 years before he blew up. Before most people even knew what live streaming was. And then Fortnite came out, which is the most popular video game of all time. And he was like the king of that game. He was like the face of that game for a while. So he went from, a very successful streamer to one of the most famous people in the world overnight.
Wow.
Really overnight.
Right.
He played with a guy named Drake, who's one of the most famous rappers of all time. Yeah. And he broke the internet. It broke it broke the website. It shut down. I mean, it was crazy. And the next day he was on CNN Business, and I just remember watching it in real time and just being like, "This is crazy." I always knew he would be successful. I had no idea that he could become one of the most famous people in the world. And so that kind of changes the game, right? He was the first one to sign an exclusive contract with a streaming platform where he's only allowed to stream on this site, right? For multi-million. I mean, there's a guy named XQC. I don't recommend your listeners look him up. No offense, but he just signed a $100 million deal for 2 years to stream on one of the new platforms that's coming out.
Wow!
So we're talking, that's more money than LeBron James made in his 2-year deal for the Lakers. Yeah. And my brother was literally the one who paved the way for that to happen.
Yeah.
And so that's different than the monetization that it is and isn't different than the monetization that I'm using with my platform. Right? You still have to get sponsorship deals, and that's the same kind of thing. But when you get big to the tune of 100 million followers, you're looking at like exclusive deals with either YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, and that's kind of where that money comes in.
So his streaming, he's doing that commentary as he plays the game, and that's how same kind of thing.
So I focus on like building a community, and not that he doesn't. He loves this community, but he's one of the best video gamers of all time. Now he's like good at the game. Does
he have like extraordinary hand-eye coordination?
Yeah.
He does?
Yes. Like it legitimately, there is like practice. It's just like an athlete, except obviously different because it's physically different. But there are people who are just gifted at it and people that are not. So I play more than he does right now because he's made his he can retire 10 times over. So
you're playing more than him?
Yeah, because he just streams. He plays other games. He games more than I do, but he does a lot of it offline. He doesn't need to stream anymore. He does it every once in a while. And he's still like, he picks up the game that I play often, and he's 10 times better than me at it. Yeah, because he just has it.
Now, was that manifested different ways when you guys were growing up? Was he good at t-ball, or did it show itself?
So it's funny. All three of them. I've got two brothers. I'm the oldest of three. All three of us were pretty good at sports. I would say I think my brothers would agree that I was the best at sports, but I worked the hardest at it. Yeah. Tyler probably had the most natural talent. That's ninja. Okay. And he just didn't care because he was playing video games. He was much better at gaming than my other brother and I were our whole lives. If each of us had 1 hour to play and then we all played against each other, Tyler would win every time.
Now there's some too about just like a mental quickness too. Like you have to make quick decisions. So it's not just the coordination, but it's like you're gonna go through this room or door or whatever. So
think of like a quarterback, right? You have to make different reads. It's the same kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a game awareness. There's the hand-eye coordination. There's a lot of it that goes into it.
And what about? I know like women. I think biologically, or what do you say? Well, just like I heard, they're more dexterous. Like they are with fine like motor control with their hands and fingers. That they are better at that. Men are actually better at like at a distance or like throwing the stone at the bird off the tree. Sure. I put it in caveman terms, but there's a greater coordination that men have in that. Fine motor control, women have better. So I wonder if that would make them better gamers. Is that happening?
It's interesting. I mean, I will say this, like, the stereotypes of girls not being good at games, which is a big stereotype, is going away. There's some girls who are very good. But really, the top gamers in the world are still fellas. Yeah. And I don't know why, because it's not time anymore. Yeah. Like I'm friends with a lot of girls who are better at the game than I am. But not that many are the best in the world at games yet, which is I don't know what. Maybe it is that they aren't given the chance as often. Maybe that's still part of it.
Well, I think there's something too about the male psyche or something that it seems like we more easily just kind of like focus, disconnect, and maybe get into abstract world.
Sure.
And they like want some human relationship or something.
There probably is something to that. We're way more likely to be trapped in a basement for 30 hours playing video games.
It's just honing the skill, to be driven. And what about, my brother was telling me like in Korea, there's like, guys who are gamers like travel around in limousines, they have groupies. And I mean, so is America like your brother like beating out those guys too? Like,
it's so he's probably the most famous video gamer of all time, which is crazy even now. Wow. And there are probably 100 other very famous video gamers since him. Yeah. But he was the first one and therefore the biggest one. But in different parts of Asia, they're decades ahead of us with like making a living playing video games.
Oh, they are.
I mean, there are the way I describe it is the way that like England has soccer academies that like you can go to when you're in high school, right? And you're mostly playing soccer, but you're also learning. That they're doing that in different countries in Asia with video games. Wow. Oh yeah, I mean you can throw a rock in parts of Asia and hit one building where the entire building is dedicated to people playing video games. Wow. And here in America, there's not two places across the street doing that.
Yeah. Wow. I feel old talking to you.
It's a wild one. I'm not even an expert in some of those things. It's wild.
I mean, I keep telling this story, but I remember as a young boy going to the local Sears and they had an Atari set up and you could play Pong. My dad loved to go to the hardware store and they had this thing set up and this was like the greatest thing in the world to play Pong and then break out later. It's like, and I remember being in college like in 1990 and a friend, one of my classmates, he was an older guy coming back to school, but he was concerned about the virtual reality and And I was like thinking, what are you talking about? But, wearing the goggles and
Yeah.
being in this, just disconnected from the world totally. But anyway, well, thanks for doing what you're doing and being a light there and helping families with your new podcast. That'll be
Thank
fantastic.
you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you.